Good morning, Galaxians, and welcome to another live edition of the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. My name is Ryan. There's the graphic. I didn't forget it this time. Today we're going to take a look at, I think I got about a dozen items that have sold over like the last 10 days. If you were with me last week for the live shipping episode, I think there's one or two probably that were in that as well. But for anybody that wasn't here for that, I'm going to go ahead and cover those also. We'll get in here before we hop into that and say a few good mornings. Mel Flips It, good morning, and hit that thumbs up on your way in. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Then Decor Depot, welcome. Good morning. Sales are flowing. Had a stellar weekend, and things are still bumping along. It has been, I talked about in, I think, the Monday episode, how the eBay promotion had gone for me. Last week, those first 4 days of the week were absolutely horrible. Slowest 4 days I have had probably since I started doing this. And as soon as I went back into my normal routine and added in my normal like clearance promotion cadence and my sale markdowns, everything started booming. The start of this week has been absolutely fantastic. So things are definitely no summer slowdown here after that 4 days, which I can only attribute to having changed up what I've been doing and trying to rely on that eBay promotion, which just didn't really work. Lord Jake Ryan, good morning. Thanks for coming out. Media Picker Brandon, hello. How are you? Solid week. Good. Glad to hear it. Big Dre, good morning. Denza Cordiba says, did not participate in that, just did my own 10% off under $50. And as I said in the Monday episode, if I participated in it again, it will be something that I will do kind of in conjunction with my own promotions. I won't rely on that as a standalone discount offer because it just didn't generate any business. Essentially, all it did was give away money. So I would consider coupling that with my own normal clearance type discounts and just reduce those proportionately if they do another 15% off. If it's a month where I would normally run my cap at maybe 40%, I'll do 25 to account for that extra 15 and just get on with life. But to try to rely on that on its own. And I got some feedback from some other sellers who kind of had the same experience. I think Mel had tried it at one time. Liz, Colorado Reworn, had mentioned on Instagram that she had tried it and it just didn't really work out for her either. So interesting. It was worth giving it a shot, but just did not work out. Big Dre says, cha-ching, just sold a vacuum for $225 free shipping that I paid $12 for. That is outstanding. Speaking of stuff that's sold, let's just get into this What Sold segment. It is, as you will, I'm sure, imagine, a pretty book-heavy episode, but we're going to go through them anyway. This first one, Poems That Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary Burt. This was from 1904, a Doubleday Page hardcover, kind of an antique book in really pretty nice shape for a book that's over 100 years old. And it was just what it says it is, a book of poems. This was part of a big lot of books that I was into for 38 cents a piece. It was listed for $24.99 over on eBay, and I received a $20 offer plus shipping, which I went ahead and took. I paid $4.10 in fees, $1.91 in the promoted listing general fee. Again, the cost of goods sold, just 38 cents. Net profit on this one, $13.61. If you were here last week for the shipping, you saw this. This was the last of the Jimmy Swaggart School of the Bible series. I had picked up 6 or 8 of these at an estate buyout for 50 cents a piece. This one was the Holy Spirit from Genesis. This was a binder from 1983, kind of a Bible study guide. These did really, really well for me. I'm trying to think if I had 6 or 8. I sold all but one of them at the full asking price, $22.99, and I sold one at an outgoing offer for 15% off. So they were fantastic from a original cost of goods sold to just 50 cents. $22.99 plus shipping, $4.41 in fees. No promoted listing fee. Very nice. Again, that 50 cent cost of goods sold, net profit $18.08. Some old Charles Dickens books. These were, I believe, from the early 1900s. These were part of a series. This is The Works of Charles Dickens, Volume 15 and 16, which was David Copperfield, Part 1 and 2, published by P.F. Collier. Hardcovers in really nice shape considering the age. These were on sale in my store and sold for $24.49 for the two of them. They were part of the big 15,000 book lot from a few summers ago, so I was into these for a total of 8 cents. This series was actually one of the ones I had, not quite a complete series, but a pretty significant number of these. And you may recall last spring, the roof blew off my warehouse. And I had some stuff that got rain damaged, and most of the books in this series were among that group, which was a little unfortunate because they're worth anywhere from $12 to about $20 a piece. So it was a pretty big hit. That one box that a bunch of these were in really took a bath or a shower, I guess, as it were. Anyway, these sold for $24.49 on sale. Customers total $33.18. I paid $4.97 in fees, no promoted listing fee. Cost of goods sold, again, just 8 cents for the two of them. Net profit, $19.44. This was a cool old book. I almost kept it for my grandnephew, but I went ahead and listed it because it was worth $25. The Exciting World of Dinosaurs by John Raymond. This was from 1963, published by Sinclair Petroleum Company. Illustrated hardcover in fairly mediocre condition. If this thing's pristine, it's probably a $40 book, but this one was a little rough. But $24.99 nonetheless over on eBay, plus shipping. Cool old book. Interesting mix. Being published by a petroleum company, talking about the history of dinosaurs. I paid $4.95 in fees, $2.35 for the promoted listing fee. I paid $1.36 for this book as part of a private pick at an estate seller's warehouse. So my net profit on this one, $16.33. Over to Etsy. This was part of a big lot of books that I did a buyout on. Probably last fall, I want to say. This lot had a bunch of British and Australian books in it. This is The History of Abbotsleigh by Dennis Burrows from 1968. Illustrated hardcover published by the Council of Abbotsleigh. Really interesting old book. $32.99 sold in my 10% off sale over on Etsy for $29.69. Cost of goods sold just 50 cents. So this is a pretty nice flip. $3.70 in fees, no offsite ad fee on Etsy. That's helpful. Net profit on this $25.49. You can see why I like selling on Etsy. Back over to eBay. You Can't Get There From Here by Earl Hammer Jr. 1965 first printing from Random House, hardcover in its dust jacket. This was in fairly mediocre condition. The picture makes it look pretty good, but it had some moisture damage on it at the top. It had kind of that like green or red coloring on the top, which had obviously been kind of washed away by some moisture that got on it, and that had bled down onto the pages. But this is a fairly unusual book, so I had it listed for $29.99, and it sold for full price plus shipping. $5.55 in fees, $2.65 for the promoted listing fee, 50 cents again. Cost of goods sold, pretty cheap. Net profit $20.54. Another old book, The Arabian Nights Entertainments, an Aldine edition. This was volume 3 of that set. Illustrated hardcover by Pickering and Chatto. This was from the late 1800s. Physically, on the outside, in pretty rough condition. Some tanning and foxing of pages, but again, a fairly unusual piece from that age. Listed and sold for $32.99. This sold internationally. I can't remember where this went. I believe it went to Canada. Shipping, $39.16, more than the cost of the book. Crazy to me. The fees, $7.32. Thankfully, no offsite ad fee on this one. Cost of goods sold, 38 cents as part of a big lot. So net profit, $25.29 on a $32.99 sale plus shipping. 3 books on eBay. These were from the recent 5,500 plus book buy. So these are already, I've worked through maybe 400 of the 5,500 plus so far. Listed a significant number of them. These are 3 that sold. Excellent Women, The Sweet Dove Died, and A Glass of Blessings, all by Barbara Pym. These were reprints from E.P. Dutton. These were all, I believe, second printings from the late 1970s and early 1980s. She was a writer in the 1950s, and Dutton got a hold of these and did reprintings in the late 70s and 80s and kind of resurrected her career. There are probably 8 of these that I got in this lot. I've sold 2 or 3 others individually, and this one person bought 3 of these, paid full price for them, $12.99 a piece, so a total of $38.97 plus shipping. They did get the combined shipping, so just $6.88. $6.71 in fees, $3.25 for the promoted listing fee. Total cost of goods sold on these, just $1.38. I think I'm into them for 46 cents a piece. Net profit, $27.63. Some cool old books. They were in really, really nice shape. This is another one from a big lot that I bought last fall. Quiet Talks on the Crisis and After by S.D. Gordon, 1926 Fleming H. Revell hardcover. This was a kind of a religious look back at the First World War and the aftermath of it. Listed and sold for $42.99 over on eBay. $7.70 in fees, $3.77 for the promoted listing fee. My total cost with shipping, $21.90. Net profit, $31.14. Another one on eBay. Another old book. I've had this for quite a while. It was on sale. I received an offer, which I went ahead and took. This was Arctic Explorations in the years 1853 to 55. It was volume 2 of that book by Elijah Kent Kane, published way back in 1856. Illustrated hardcover, quite a bit of damage to the cover. Page is well tanned, lots of foxing, as you would expect for a book that's rapidly coming up on 200 years old, but a really unusual piece. I think I had it listed originally for like $69. It was on sale for $48.99. I got an offer of $45, which I went ahead and took because I was into this, for 38 cents. Paid $7.99 in fees, $3.91 for the promoted listing fee. Net profit, $32.72. This was one I went round and round and round. So these are Atlas of Human Anatomy, second edition, volumes 1 and 2 by a guy named Carl Tolt. They were published by Macmillan. Really nice illustrated hardcovers from 1944. Several sellers had these listed as sets. They looked like they might be a little more valuable individually, so I listed them separately. I had a potential buyer reach out from Australia that was asking about shipping costs, and I was like, it's the eBay international shipping program. I don't even have any visibility into what they're trying to charge you for those. We went back and forth on these, around and round. I tried to do a combined. I sent him actually a custom listing that had these 2 books in it individually, and for whatever reason, even combined with what should have been shipping savings, the combined package was going to cost him more to get shipped to Australia through eBay than buying them separately. So I had sent him offers for 15% off, which is what we agreed to do. So these 2 books, which were originally listed for $39.99, sold for, I believe, $33.99 a piece, $67.98 plus shipping. I have no idea what he paid in international shipping. The domestic shipping was $15.26. $12.26 in fees, $5.91 in the promoted listing fee. My cost to ship these was just $13.06 because it was cheaper to send them ground advantage. My cost of goods sold, a whopping 76 cents. So the net profit on these 2 books, $51.25. Back over to Etsy. This is a book I have had a ton of action on over the years. I've had it for quite a while. I've had people that reached out and asked me to send them a PDF of a couple of pages out of it, to take pictures of a couple of pages. I've had people ask me if I would take significantly less, and I had like the only one of these that appeared to be in any kind of condition. So I pretty much just stuck to my guns on this one and waited it out. And finally, it sold. Working Dogs, Breeds and Standards as Recognized by the AKC from 1935. Illustrated hardcover in its dust jacket, in fairly good condition. for, again, a book that's coming up on 100 years old, listed and sold for $74.99. This sold at full price over on Etsy. I was not running a sale at the time this was purchased. $87.68 was the buyer's total, $8.10 in fees, 4 cents. Again, cost of goods sold, part of the big 15,000 book lot. $66.85 was my net profit. And that is going to be our flip of the week. So there you go. Pretty good week. All things considered, once we got through that first 4 days, things really ramped back up. I'm going to move this screen up here where I can see it a little better. So yeah, really pleased with how that ended up working out. Let's get back here into the chat. Blow this up again so I can see it. Chuck Witt, good morning. Always good to see you. What do we got here? Playroom, hello. Welcome to the show. Big Dre, vacuums take up a lot of space in the storage unit, so I'm glad I got one sold today. I bet. I bet. As you can imagine, with 5,500 plus books, my storage unit is also, my garage, for starters, is absolutely packed full of stuff. I had a seller reach out to me today that has another estate full of books, and I had to decline. Just can't do it. I am full up at the moment. So that was unfortunate. Although the pictures she sent me, it didn't look like a particularly great collection anyway, so I'm not all that upset about it. But yeah, I think I mentioned in my main episode on Monday, I also just leased some additional warehouse space. It turned out it's going to be even bigger than I anticipated, because when the builder got in there, he was able to finagle some stuff around a door, and I ended up with probably an extra 40 odd square feet. So that's going to work out really well. It looks like I'll be able to get a ton of books in there. I started building some shelving this morning. I've been busy. I've already done almost 20 listings. I shipped, I think, 16 or 17 items, and I built some shelves this morning, and then I got ready to do this. So let me know what's going on out there in your world. That's all I've got for today, my friends. So if you've got something particular you'd like to talk about, let us know in the chat. You'll see something run across the ticker there. If you have anything you would like to see a standalone video on, let me know. I'm interested in maybe doing some other stuff, but I'd like to have them be topics that people are interested in. So if you do have something, let me know in the chat, or if you're watching on Team Replay, let me know in the comments if there's something particular you would like to see a video on. Speaking of, one of the things I talk about, we'll get into this a little bit, is the advice that you get in Facebook groups. And this, I bring this up again today because I was in a Facebook group and someone asked if they could use pirate ship with eBay. And there were, the first two answers were both, yes, but you have to manually input the tracking. It does not notify the customer. And then there was another one after my post on that topic that essentially said the same thing. And it is just remarkable to me how many people answer questions on these sites, whether they're in a Facebook group or on Reddit or in the community boards on the platforms, that don't have any idea what they're talking about. Yes, you can use pirate ship with eBay. It has an integration. It will download all of your stuff. When you put in the information and generate your label, it will upload tracking to eBay, who will then notify the customer that the item has been shipped. It is all pretty much 100% automated. It works seamlessly, flawlessly. You don't have to manually go back and put in tracking numbers. You don't lose any insurance or anything from eBay. And yet there were multiple people on that thread saying, yes, you've got to manually do all that. So again, just a word to the wise, just be careful where you get advice from. I posted that you could do all that and then even included a link to the instructions from Pirate Ship on how to do that. So that's probably one of the key things maybe to look for, is to see when people bother to put in an actual link. You can have a little more confidence that maybe they know what it is they're talking about. Let's get back here into the chat. Did you hear about live YouTube shooting in Vegas? I did not. Fill me in. What is that all about? Is that like today, or is that something that's happened earlier in the week? I had not seen that. Big Dre says a local reseller that supplies me with inventory for my niche store keeps texting me to go pick up more inventory. So I'll try to go get it on the weekend. Yeah, it's a good problem to have. Like I said, normally I'm buying 1,000 or 1,500 items at a time, and I can afford to take more on. But with this last buy having been so huge, I just literally don't have any room to put anything. I need to work through some of these. I'm currently listing right around 200 a week, which at that pace, it'll still take me months to get through the 5,500. Maybe within 4 to 6 weeks, I'll be in a position where I would consider taking on some more inventory, because obviously when we get into the winter, things tend to dry up. So I don't mind having some extra stock. But man, it's good to have like a source that is constantly feeding us stuff. Den Decor Depot says, here's an interesting question. Buyer just bought an item literally the next town over. Would you drop the item at that home post office? I would not go out of my way to ship the thing from a particular office. I would just include it. I get that all the time. I get a lot of customers from Cincinnati, Dayton. I'm in Hamilton, which is kind of equidistant between the two. And I don't offer local pickup. I have too much going on to mess around with trying to meet someone. So everything gets lumped in with my normal stuff. It's on my normal sheet. I take it to my normal post office, and it just goes through the normal process. But let me know in the chat if anybody else would handle that differently. But I would not necessarily go out of the way to do anything different with that. Den Decor Depot says, I've gotten out of all the Facebook reselling groups. I got kicked out of most for being far too blunt on stupidity. Yeah, I was ready to put some people on blast, but I didn't. I hope that people, when they see like multiple answers, that again, they'll go to the platform themselves. It's always interesting to me that people post in a Facebook group a question. I've talked about this before, that if they had just put it into Google, they would have gotten the answer. If they had just put it into ChatGPT or whatever, they would have gotten an answer, rather than relying on a bunch of people who don't always necessarily know what they're doing. Standalone video, a lot of AI chatter in the reselling world lately. Are you considering its use in your processes? To be honest, I keep looking at AI. I use it occasionally for research and, maybe a first draft of a script if I'm doing something, unusual. But I haven't really found a good way to integrate like Google Gemini or ChatGPT into what I'm doing on a daily basis. It is something that I continue to watch and monitor. And if I find a good use case, I'm not opposed to using it. As I've talked about here, I don't use any really of the platform's AI. I don't use the picture tweaks. I don't use the descriptions. I'm not using any of that because my experience has been that the results have not been that great. Having spent some time dabbling with Google Gemini in particular, I'm fairly pleased with what it does in terms of just researching things and giving me some sources if I need to look into some things. But I'm not sure I've found a good use case for it specifically in reselling. But it is something I'm really curious about and continuing to watch. It is, you see a lot of different information on AI just generally from, there was a news report, I think it was in Britain. The guy, he does, I think, a podcast, and he has his, I don't know if it's ChatGPT or one of them, but he has it like do like a summary of his scripts when the podcast is done. And the AI generated a summary of a show that he had not yet submitted the script. And it was interesting. He went round and round and round with the AI, arguing with it that it had made up the information that it was giving him because he had not yet uploaded the script. And finally, the AI relented and admitted that it was lying. So that to me is the other cautionary thing. I've watched another video yesterday on like the accuracy level of different AIs. This guy is a professor, and he, like I do, uses it for some research. and it asks it to cite its sources. And he did a survey. He used 3 different AIs, and we're way off the reselling tangent here, but one of which had like a 16% error rate, some of which was just straight hallucination. It had made up sources that were not real, and other cases where it just misidentified a source. Another one was at like 25%, and another one made just a single mistake. So there's still a lot of room for improvement in the results of AI, much like the eBay product description AI. You're still responsible for the content of whatever it is you're doing. You need to verify that the information that the AI gives you is true and accurate. So I feel like in a lot of cases, it's still easier and quicker to just do all that research yourself rather than trust the AI because it's giving so much erroneous information. I'll get off my soapbox now, but with the recent tutorials on selling, you're very good at discipline and not procrastinating. That would be a good topic for you to go into in detail for those sessions. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Media Picker happened a few days ago, was on an ongoing beef between YouTubers, Finny the Legend and Sin City Mannywise. Manny shot them dead in front of Bellagio while they were live streaming. Wow, that is crazy. What were they beefing about that would lead to that kind of result? Man, people are just nuts. That's crazy. Den Decor Depot says there's a few things the cross-listing platforms do not do that chat got literally, I assume you mean ChatGPT, literally gave an explanation and wrote it in generic script to perform the tasks on the unsupported Vendu platforms. There you go. And I can see where if you're using those to do a lot more than what I'm using them for, being able to generate a script or some code to allow you to take that next step would be super helpful. And it is really, really good by all accounts at doing that type of work. Mel flips it. People who don't research first before asking questions drive me nuts. I don't have the tolerance for groups because of how do these people get anything done? Yeah. You wonder, some of the questions, and I get it. Everybody was new once at this, but you see some like really basic questions that you feel like people should do a little bit of work on their own to find these things. I see all the time people will take a picture of whatever and they'll just ask in the Facebook group, what should I list this for? Well, why would I do the product research for you? You've got the thing. You need to learn how to do that. I can see watching a YouTube video on like what was just mentioned, the methodology of doing research. That's why I do like once a month, we sit over at the listing booth and I show people how I do my research on books. Those kind of videos can be super helpful. But just flat out saying, oh, I found this blouse or this purse or this whatever, how much should I try to sell it for? And expect for other resellers to either just give you that answer or to do the research and then give you the answer. Just, it doesn't make any sense to me. You're never going to learn how to do this if that is your method for trying to figure things out. Anyway, I'm on my soapbox today. Big Dre says videos on AI hallucinations are very creepy. Yeah, I was watching another one last night where a guy replaced for, I don't know what it was, 2 weeks, all of his actual friends. He didn't have any human interaction. He solely relied on AI for ordering his food at the restaurant, for his companionship and his communication. And it was nuts how like involved the AI became and how demanding it became of his time. Anytime he like drifted off into something else, the AI was like, hey, you need to come talk to me. And it was weird. I saw a report yesterday and I didn't really get a chance to dive into it super deep that was talking about how again, using AI as a companion is driving some people literally insane. It's sending them down these conspiracy rabbit holes. And, AI is essentially, it works based on your prompts. So if you prompt it for some kind of conspiracy theory, it gives you an answer and then you continue to query based on that answer. It just dives further and further down the rabbit hole. It never stops and says, hey, this thing we're talking about is not true. It's a conspiracy theory. It just continues to feed into your interest in that conspiracy based on how you ask the questions. And it's led to some really, really bad outcomes for people. So Den Decor Depot says, Mel flips it. They don't, and neither was I. It's frustrating. I try to be like understanding. Again, like I said, everybody was new once, but as I've talked about here on this show, this is you've got to have a lot of self-discipline and a lot of self-motivation to be a reseller, be it part-time or full-time. It's a lonely process, like I talked about in the stress management video that I did a couple of weeks ago. But it requires a lot of independent effort. And if you're not self-disciplined enough to do that, this is not something that's going to work really well for you. Jeff, welcome. Good to see you. Thanks for coming out. Lord Jake Ryan says you'd have a shirt with you getting off soapbox for your merch. I will look into that. Maybe I'll have AI create some art. Big Dre says I recommend Rob Braxman Tech YouTube channel to learn the dangers of AI. I will take a look at him. Thank you. Media Picker, long story short, Manny was a performer on Fremont. Finney's wife was recording him up close and he took offense to it, and there was a scuffle. Since then, Finney was basically bullying him. Man, it's not that serious, folks. It's YouTube. I mean, I guess if you make your living on it, maybe, but gosh, people just get so wound up. This could be it. Welcome. That Jimmy Swaggart has been trending lately. A few CDs and cassettes. Yes. And like I said last week, anything I get from him does well, and most of it brings pretty decent money. He wrote a book about Armageddon. I sold that on Whatnot. Did okay on it. I've sold several of his expositors Bible study Bibles that have done really, really well. I'm talking $40, $50, $60, $80 well. So his stuff is just, despite his fall from grace, his stuff is really, really good. Den Decor Depot says Meta Marketplace for businesses and OfferUp is a big crux I can't seem to break without expensive software, and ChatGPT seems to have it figured out if you want to DIY it. There you go. Yeah, having the AI be able to generate code and kind of help guide you through some of these things. And again, as opposed to asking on a Facebook group where Lord knows what the answer you might get is going to be, Chat GPT and AI generally seems to be really, really good at giving you the research. Here's how you could do these things, and then writing code or scripts if that's what you need to get your software integrated. So there are definitely some really great use cases, assuming we don't go down the route of the Terminator. Mel flips it, says, I love ChatGPT 4, but it's a source and all sources need checked. As a life rule, it's only as smart as I am. And that was another one I watched this morning while I was eating breakfast. They were talking about how important your prompts are to getting good results. And it's the same as it's always been with computers back to when I was a kid, and PCs were just starting to kind of come into normal schools and homes. The old garbage in, garbage out. If you put in bad inputs or wrote bad code, you got bad results. This is no different, except that obviously it's orders of magnitude more powerful. It's faster. It does a much, much better job at generating answers and information. But it's totally dependent on you being really good about how you prompt it to generate what you want, asking it to cite sources, asking it to only look at the one guy I was watching last night was talking about, he told it specifically to only look at peer-reviewed journals. He didn't want random blog posts or Facebook posts to be part of the sourcing. He wanted it to be very specific, academic, peer-reviewed sources. So you can lay out that level of specificity. And if you don't, that's when you start getting yourself into really random results. Mel Flips It asks to Den Decor, did you say before your wife was listing on Mercari without a cross poster? If so, any sales changers? And I have noticed, interestingly, to get back into reselling a little bit, I've seen some people getting back on Mercari because of all the kerfluffle over at Poshmark, and that their success this go round on Mercari seems to be a little better than what they were experiencing before. My sales have been reasonably good over there, 3, 4 a week, which is no great shakes, but compared to 1 a week or a week where I didn't have any, I feel pretty good about it. So maybe, fingers crossed, Mercari has turned the corner a little bit. The answer is no. She's using Vendu. Mercari has been good for about every other day, mostly low dollar stuff. And that, we've talked about that a lot. That's been my experience on Mercari as well. It's generally speaking the lower value, more economical stuff that's selling over there. I have had a few decent licks, but for the most part, everything that I sell over there has been cheaper. Again, I'm in a category that I don't think is particularly strong on Mercari, and old vintage books just are not what people go to Mercari for. So there is that. But we are at about 35 minutes, so we still got some time here. If we're going to look at about an hour, I am going to take a quick drink, though. Is anybody using any of the other, like, smaller sites? Another phenomenon that I see in Facebook groups is people who seem to be asking questions to get feedback on a particular site that I've never heard of, but that maybe are just trying to shill for that site to get people interested in it. But I see a lot of, like, sites that I've never heard of being mentioned in Facebook groups. So is anybody selling anywhere other than, like, the primary sites that we normally deal with? eBay, Amazon, Poshmark, Mercari, Etsy. Are you selling on a really, really small site, like smaller than Depop, for instance? And if so, are you getting any traction? In the book world, I see people asking and talking about Pango books, and I go over there and I just don't see much activity. So if you're a fellow bookseller and you're selling on Pango books, let me know what your personal results have been. I'm hesitant to invest the time and effort into a smaller site myself, because the work level versus the reward just doesn't seem to be beneficial to me. I'm always curious. I'm always interested in potentially adding another site that will benefit my business, but I'm just not convinced some of these smaller sites are actually worth it. This could be it. Last week I pulled Bonanza and closed the store with eBay integration. They charge $20 per month now. Go boom. Not worth the effort. Yeah, I talked about that when they announced that. That was about 2 months ago, that they were going to start having listing fees. You got so many free, and then they were going to start charging you up to a maximum of $20 for a lot of sellers. I can speak from personal experience. It was a rare month that I sold much more than $20 worth over there. So let alone made $20 net profit to cover those fees. So yeah, it's unfortunate. It's a decent looking platform. The integration is super easy, but if it's not profitable, you just can't make it make sense. Dan Decor says the same. I've eliminated Bonanza. Discogs is probably my smallest, but I don't have time unless I can get AI to cross list. Yeah, I've not sold on Discogs. Brandon, Media Picker, if you're still here, do you sell over there by chance? I use it for research frequently. If I've got like a box of CDs, I will use Discogs pretty regularly because they've got tons of great record stores and CD stores that are selling over there, so you can get a really accurate feel for what pricing should be on an item, but I've just never sold over there. Mel Flips, it says, I tried Pango, just not great, perhaps for newer books or popular mass market. Yeah, and that's the low value stuff that I do sell, but I'm not going to go like an extra step to try to sell another $3.99 book on another site. If it was integrated into my cross-listing regimen with List Perfectly, would I do it? Yes, because I do it with Mercari and don't really generate a ton of sales there. But to go through the manual effort of cross-listing or creating a script to cross-list from eBay over to Pango Books, I just can't. Just can't justify it personally. Then Decor Depot says eBay is still the king. Long live the king. Absolutely. I talked about it again in a Facebook group the other day. The question came up about, where do I sell books? Where's my best place for books? And 80% of my business is still on eBay. And it was interesting. There were several other booksellers who also chimed in with the same feelings I have on Amazon, that it just is no longer worth the amount of effort that's required to sell over there. Then Decor says, I sold one classical set on there in December. Do you have a lot of stuff listed or just a handful? Media Picker says I've done a few on Discogs, just under grade, especially since there's no pictures. Would like to do more, but to start listing there would be time consuming, and I would be picky on what I list. Yes, and that's one of the reasons I've essentially gotten out of vinyl records. Vinyl record buyers can be really, really finicky about grading. I've talked about it before. Even on books, I tend to undergrade. If I think an item's good, I'll probably list it as acceptable. I may put in the description that it's acceptable bordering on good and then give my reasons for that. But I always tend to try to under-promise, over-deliver. And with Discogs in particular, and with record buyers specifically, they're really, really tough on what they expect in terms of grading. Media Picker says, I do buy on Discogs quite a bit, though, for the personal collection. It's a massive, massive collection. It is the place to go. If you're looking for something really, really unusual, if they don't have it, it's not out there. It is crazy, some of the stuff that they've got. Then Decor says maybe 200 CDs. I think there are 10% of them in Discogs. What kind of fees does Discogs charge? I'm just curious. Again, I've not looked into it because of the other real or perceived issues that I have in terms of grading and the level of expectation from the customer base there. But what's their fee structure? All the classical stuff I got for free, so it's kind of whatever. Take the low balls on eBay. Yeah, when they're free, you can be a lot more open to various offers. So it's been interesting. I've had a few. I don't know if eBay made a change, because I always set a minimum acceptable offer when I do my listings. Let's, for instance, I list a yearbook for $29.99, and then I'll have a minimum acceptable offer of $24. And then maybe a year or year and a half down the road, that item goes on sale in my store as part of my normal clearance, which may put it below where my normal acceptable offer would be. And it used to be people couldn't send me offers on those because I was already below that threshold. But now I'm getting these random super low offers. I had one yesterday. A guy offered me $6 for a $30 yearbook. So I don't know if eBay made a change that when an item is below the minimum acceptable offer, they delete it, or what happened, because in that case, it had just completely gone away. And I always do that. So that one was weird. Media Picker says fees are 9% on the item and shipping combined. That's not too hateful. No payment processing fee or any additional, just a flat 9. That's doable. Do they offer any kind of shipping, or it's totally on your own? Do they provide labels, or do you have to use like a pirate ship, a third party? Again, I've not sold there, so I don't know how deep into it they get. Are they just a clearinghouse for the stuff and the individual sellers are on their own? That's what I did when I sold on Amazon. I didn't use any of their labels. I did everything was fulfilled by merchant, and I did labels on my own. So interesting. Is anybody else a media seller considering selling on Discogs or Pango Books or any of the other smaller sites? Then Decortivo says payment processing hit is on PayPal. Okay, so they're a PayPal. Shipping on your own, you can set up APIs for pirate ship in Discogs. I wonder, I guess probably not. I was going to say, I wonder if you could do something. I wonder if ChatGPT could cook me up a script to integrate Etsy. I'm still grandfathered because I was using Etsy with Pirate Ship. But I know sooner or later that integration is going to reset. I wonder if I could finagle some kind of script to get Pirate Ship to pull my Etsy listings, should that ever happen. Or better yet, if I could get it to pull my Mercari listings, because they still don't have integration. I'll have to look into that. If there are any AI experts in the world who would even know how to prompt that, there's a project for you. Get that to work. How many other sites, again, just curious, asking questions here today, still use PayPal as like a third-party payment processor? Because so many of them now have gone to their own because they want to capture those fees. Interesting that Discogs has not done that yet. That's on your short list on the Etsy deal. There you go. Keep me posted. I would assume because they appear to be contractually tied to Shippo, and I think it's ShipStation. Those are the only two official integrations that they now offer. I assume that they probably have that on lockdown, but that would definitely be an interesting one. Because like I said, I'm surprised my integration has lasted this long, because normally every like 90 to 180 days I was having to reset Etsy, and I'm well over a year now without having to reset it. So that's good news. I will take that. Just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. I will not be doing a live this Friday. I'm going to take the day off and try to get some more listings done, try to create some more space in my garage. So I'll be focused on that this week. Mike Metco Meetups, hello. Here's to the number 2 ranked reseller podcast. Thank you. I appreciate that. That is still weird to me, but a very cool little bit of recognition. This could be it. Says I found USPS site has now given me business shipping discounts, which I can skip other shipping venues and get the discounts. That's interesting. Are they doing like cubic rate, like Pirate Ship and like eBay occasionally does, and the like box in a bag and all that kind of stuff? Fill us in. Pirate Ship is essentially free, so the USPS would have to kind of integrate in the same seamless way that it does on Pirate Ship for it to be useful for me with a bunch of shipments. But if the rates are cheaper, that's good. Then Decor says I kept PayPal on Bonanza. I think it's technically an option. Right. I'm talking about sites that use it solely as their payment processing method. I know it's still, you can use PayPal with a credit card to pay pretty much anywhere if you believe their TV commercials. But I'm curious if there are any sites, sounds like Discogs is one, that's it. Because that's a lot of money being left on the table. Even if you're only doing whatever, 2.39, 2.59% plus 30 cents a transaction, that's a lot of money. If you're doing tens of thousands of transactions a week, that's being left that a place like Bonanza or Discogs is not capturing because they are allowing PayPal to do that. Pixeltail says, I'll have to look into Discogs, have some rare 4AD and red ant label unopened LPs I need to sell. Yeah. Even if you end up not listing them there, that would be my go-to to at least get a feel for the value. Obviously, I always started on eBay, but if it was a piece that was rare enough I couldn't find it, then I would go over to Discogs. I've told the story about the CD that I got in the big 8,300 CD lot from about 4 years ago. Was a super rare promotional CD from Depeche Mode back in the 90s. There were a total of 100 of these made, 2 each for 50 radio stations across the world, 25 in the US, 25 in Europe. And that was it. And there was one that was done locally here for WOXY 97X. Bam, the future of rock and roll. If you watched Rain Man, you're familiar with that. So couldn't, of course, find any comps on that. It's a literal one of 2. But I went to Discogs and I found one from a different radio station, and they had a description of all the information that I just said. I had no idea it was that rare. And that allowed me to come up with kind of a ballpark idea of what the value was. I saw comps on Discogs for anywhere from $200 to $500. I listed mine for like $349.99 and sold it for about $300, and that almost paid for the entire lot. So it is even if you don't end up selling there, it is a really, really great research tool. Kind of like Abe books for booksellers. I don't sell on Abe, but when I find outliers, had one yesterday. There was one listed on eBay. The guy had it listed for like $99.99. It just didn't look like $100 book to me. So I went over to Abe Books, and lo and behold, there's a bunch of them for $12 and $15. So having that like extra resource to go to kind of find for those more unusual items is super helpful. This could be it. Says it's on par with eBay discounts and PayPal shipping discounts. There you go. Tim Halcomb, welcome. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. Dentacor Depot says, okay, got to get these items out. Time to sell. Have a great day. We are just about at an hour, so we'll wrap this up here quickly. Media Picker says, rare hair metal EP sold for $300 late last year. Wasn't even on Discogs. I had to totally guess on a listing price. That does happen from time to time. You'll find that rare, super unusual item. A lot of times I'll try those at auction first. As something like this big lot, I'll find a book, can't find any comps, don't know what it's worth. Be like, I'd like to get at least $40 out of it. It could be worth 500. I don't know. I can't find anything on it. So I'll start it. I'll run it for a week at an auction and see what happens just to get a feel for it. But Pixel Tail says, Discog says my Love and Rockets double LP is worth $350. Now actually getting that is another story. Yes. And that, again, to go back to like news stories and whatever, you see articles all the time, people selling something on eBay, some, random item for $500 or $1,500 or $5,000. People may have them listed there for those amounts, but they're not necessarily selling them for those amounts. And again, the reporting just doesn't dig deep enough. They'll see these listings for crazy prices and don't do the research that they're not actually selling. They're all just sitting there with these crazy prices. Like the book I just mentioned, that guy may have had that book listed for $100 for I don't know how long. And there are others available elsewhere for 10% of that price. He's just never going to sell it. But if all you did was go to eBay and look, you'd say, that's $100 book. Woo, yay me. But that just doesn't, unfortunately, work out. But hopefully you can list it and get that for it if you're inclined to sell it, or you just want to hang on to it knowing now that it has great value. I almost hung on to that Depeche Mode CD, but I was like, I'm here to make money. I got to not take items out of my lots for my personal collection. So I didn't do it, but I'll have to look that up and see what it's worth now. That was 4 years ago. I wonder, obviously one of two out of whatever it was, 100, the value's only going to go up from there, but super interesting. You just never know what you're going to find in a big lot. That is going to put, I think, a wrap on this, unless anybody has anything else they'd like to sneak in here under the wire. As always, if you got something out of this today or you just liked the sold section, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here and not currently a subscriber, please consider doing that as well. Would love to have you on board. Don't have a lot of people joining from the lives. This seems to be kind of a captive audience of people who already are in the ecosystem, but I appreciate it. As always, thank you for coming out and spending a little bit of time. And with that, let's wrap this up. Guys, until next week, it's time to sell. Have a great week, everybody.